On the record at 1:09 p.m.
Ms. Malveaux, Section 2, Paragraph A of the bylaws provides that the Board of Directors shall cause to be kept a complete record of all of its acts and corporate affairs and to present a statement thereof to the members at the annual meeting. To your knowledge, during the time that you were the office manager for Sterling Green, did the Board of Directors comply with that provision?
Objection form.
Did they supply? Can you repeat that?
Section 2, Paragraph A of the bylaws provides that the Board of Directors of Sterling Green shall cause to be kept a complete record of all of its acts and corporate affairs and to present a statement thereof to the members at the annual meeting. To your knowledge, during your time as office manager for Sterling Green, did the Board of Directors comply with the provision I just quoted?
Objection form.
We did present on the finances, yeah.
So is the answer yes?
Objection form.
Yeah, we did what we were supposed to do as far as I know.
Did they delegate the task of keeping a complete record of all of its acts and corporate affairs to the business to your office?
Yeah,
Objection form.
Yeah, it was, all the records were kept in the office.
And did your office, did Sterling Green employees maintain a complete record of all the acts of the Board of Directors and corporate affairs?
Objection form.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Let me rephrase it. Did your office maintain a complete record, while you were manager for Sterling Green, did your office keep a complete record of all of the acts of the Board of Directors?
Objection form.
We kept, I don't know, I'm not sure.
You don't know? Okay.
No.
Would it be accurate to say that the Board of Directors, while you were employed by Sterling Green as office manager, would it be accurate to say that the Board of Directors did not maintain its own records and instead delegated the task of storing records to Sterling Green employees, including you?
Objection form.
The records were maintained in the office.
By whom?
Objection form.
They were kept, they weren't kept in the open, they were kept, in a file.
Who maintained the records?
They were kept in the office that I was in, all the records.
And so they were maintained by you, is that correct?
In my office, people had access to them, but they were maintained in a locked cabinet.
Was the office you worked in the business office? Did it have a name, the office you worked in?
They were combined, the offices are combined.
And what were those offices?
We had the front office and the other office where I was.
So you had the front office
Yeah.
and another office?
And we had files in both offices.
Okay, I'm going to ask this one more time and move on because I don't think I've received an answer yet. While you were the office manager for Sterling Green, did the office you worked in maintain a complete record of the acts of the Board of Directors?
Yes, we maintained the records, yes.
During your time as office manager Were Sterling Green's books and records kept up to date?
Yes.
Did it generate and possess minutes for all Board of Director meetings and Board of Director executive meetings?
Yes.
And your office maintained those as well?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Sterling Green assessments?
Objection
Yes.
form.
Yeah, the assessments that was collect annual assessments, yes.
Did your office collect assessments,
Yes.
assessment payments?
Objection
Yes, the
form.
office did. Mhm.
And did you oversee the collection of assessment payments?
They were collected by the office staff, the assistants, office assistants.
And did you oversee those assistants?
Objection form.
Yeah, they reported to me. Mhm.
And you oversaw them in the performance of that task?
Not
Objection
always.
form.
I mean, not constantly, consistently. When if we had customers come in, I wasn't there, constantly when they took the payments, but we had a process.
With regard to the employees who collected the assessment payments or accepted the assessment payments, did they have any supervisors other than you?
No.
Objection form.
As of 2018, what was the amount of the annual assessment?
Objection
It
form.
was $270 per household.
And was it collected once a year?
Yes,
And when was it due?
Objection
due by
form.
January 31st of each year.
What was the compensation you received from Sterling Green for your work as an employee in 2015?
Objection form.
$15 an hour.
Did you receive payments for anything other than your hourly wages?
Objection form.
No, other than the mileage, no.
What was your hourly wage in 2016?
Objection
The
form.
same.
Did you receive payment for anything from Sterling Green, in 2016, for anything other than your hourly wages and your mileage?
No.
Objection form.
To simplify, throughout your entire employment with Sterling Green, did you receive payment for Sterling Green for anything other than mileage and your hourly wage?
No.
Objection form.
Did you, in the course of performing your job for Sterling Green, ever incur expenses for the purchase of products or equipment or supplies and then seek compensation for that expense from Sterling Green?
No.
Objection form.
Did you receive increases in salary while you were a manager, office manager with Sterling Green?
Yes. Mhm.
Are there minutes reflecting Board of Directors approval?
Yes. Mhm. And what there was, I don't know if it's still there or not.
How many times did you receive increases in salary?
Objection form.
Went from 15 to 18 to 21.50, so it was 3 times.
Do you know the years in which you received those increases?
Objection form.
Not for sure. I know it was 3 in the 12 years, but I'm not for sure.
is it your testimony that the Board of Directors voted on those increases at meetings and improved those meetings and increases, those increases at meetings, and that there are documents reflecting those votes?
Objection
Yes.
four.
It was, I'm not sure.
Did your employment position with Sterling Green enable you, let me rephrase that. As office manager with Sterling Green, was it among your duties to identify conduct or conditions that subjected members of Sterling Green to fines?
Objection four.
Yes, we had a fine policy.
What was that policy?
Objection four.
You give the, we had a deed restriction office at department, and they did inspections, and when the inspection was, you know, people didn't follow the deed restrictions, they would send a notice and given so much time to correct it, and after they didn't correct it by a certain amount of time, or they got, I think, 2 or 3 notices, and after that they were issued a fine.
So they were given opportunities to correct the condition before they
Yes.
were fined.
Yes,
Objection four.
And did that occur on each occasion on which they were fined?
Objection
yes.
four.
Mhm.
Were the notices provided in writing?
Yes.
Objection
Mhm.
four.
Were penalties imposed for deed restriction violations?
Objection four.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And what were the range of the fines
Objection four.
in terms of the monetary amounts?
Objection.
I don't know. We had an attorney that set up the fine schedule for us. I can't recall.
What was the name of the attorney?
I don't know. I can't remember. It's been years ago.
What year was it?
I think in 2007.
Was that fine schedule published online in 2007? Let me rephrase that. Was that fine schedule published in accordance with laws applicable to fines that homeowners association impose?
Objection four.
Objection four.
It was done by the attorney. Everything was done by the attorney.
Objection non-responsive. Do you know if the fine schedule, there was a document listing penalties and the amounts of the fines, is that correct?
Yes.
Objection four.
Was that document, to your knowledge, published in accordance with applicable law?
Objection four.
Yes, it was.
When?
Objection four.
It was 2007 when it was set up.
When did the, strike that, did the Sterling Green Board of Directors authorize your office to impose fines on members?
Objection four.
Yes.
When did it do that?
Objection four.
It was set up in 2007.
And was there a meeting at that time in which the Board of Directors held a vote and voted to authorize the office, your office, to impose fines on members?
Objection four.
Yeah, it was agreed, the board agreed to have the attorney to set up a fine schedule. And after that, members were notified, and then, you know, so.
Did the Board of Directors approve the amounts of the fines themselves at any point?
Objection four.
Yes, well, the attorney set some of the fines up.
And after he set them up, did the board approve them?
Objection
Yes,
four.
And was that in 2007?
yes.
Objection four.
Can you identify anywhere in the bylaws that authorizes Sterling Green to impose fines?
Objection four.
Any provision of the bylaws?
Objection four.
No.
Objection four.
Can you identify any other document that authorizes the collection of fines by your office while you were the office manager for Sterling Green?
Objection form.
Can you repeat that?
Can you identify any other document that reflects an authorization by the Board of Directors of Sterling Green given to your office to collect fines?
Objection form.
No, we just went by the documents that the attorney filed.
To your knowledge, was Sterling Green investigated by any law enforcement agency for its practices regarding the imposing of and collecting of fines?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Have you ever recommended any entity or person to Sterling Green as a person or entity with whom it should do business or enter into a contract or from whom it should buy goods or services?
Objection form.
No, not that. I'm not aware.
Is that a no?
No.
Have you ever done business with Sterling Green outside of serving as an employee or as a member of the Board of Directors?
No.
Objection form.
Have you ever received payments of any kind from an entity with which Sterling Green does or did business?
No.
Objection.
Have you ever spoken with Chris Connery regarding this lawsuit?
No.
You know who James Young is?
Objection form.
I think was an attorney, as far as I know.
He was an attorney for Sterling Green.
I think so, yeah, at one time. Mm-hmm.
You were elected to the Sterling, correction, strike that. Is it your belief that you were elected to the Sterling Green Board of Directors in the annual election held in March 2017?
Objection form.
Yes, that's my belief.
I'm going to have a June 21, 2017 email from Edward Holtz to Sterling Green, marked as Exhibit 7. Please take a look at Exhibit 7. Have you had a chance to review the document?
I can't read it all right now, but yeah, I've seen some of it.
Is it an email from Edward Holtz to Sterling Green?
Yes, that's what it is, yes.
And does it begin with the sentence, "Thank you for your responses, Dorothy"?
Yes, it does.
At the time you worked for Sterling Green, did anyone else with the first name of Dorothy work for Sterling Green?
No.
And is this dated June 21, 2017?
Yes, it is.
Can you read the first sentence of the third paragraph that begins with the words, "I must stress"?
Okay. Okay.
Can you read it aloud, please?
I must stress that despite what you've told me, I respectfully disagree that proper notice was provided for the last election.
Thank you. Then can you read the next two sentences aloud, please?
Section 209.0056 requires that written notice of the election must be provided to each owner of the property and association for purposes of an association-wide election or vote not later than the 10th day or earlier than the 60th day before the date of the election. Written notice indicates that it should be mailed.
And the next sentence, please.
Posting on message board and the association's website does not provide sufficient notice under the law to each owner.
Was the 2017 was notice of the 2017 election posted on message boards and the association's website?
Objection
Yes, it
form.
was.
Did the association provide written notice of the election to each owner of a property in the association no later than the 10th nor earlier than the 60th day before the election?
Objection form.
Read that again, please.
Did the association provide written notice of the March 2017 election to each owner of the property in the association not later than the 10th day or earlier, or the 60th day, or earlier than the 60th day before the election?
Objection form.
Not sure, no, I'm not aware.
While you were office manager, when were ballots normally sent to homeowners for March annual elections?
When was what?
During what month of the year were ballots sent to homeowners, to the ballots that were to be used in the March annual elections?
Objection form.
Yeah, I think they were like 2 weeks, 14 days before, or something like that, a month or 2 weeks or something like that.
Was there ever a time when Sterling Green sent ballots to homeowners with the annual assessments during October of the previous year?
Objection
For
four.
the assessment?
I'll rephrase. While you were office manager for Sterling Green, did it ever have a practice of sending ballots for the March annual elections for the board of directors to homeowners the previous October, 5 months earlier, with the annual
No.
assessments?
No, that's
Objection
never
four.
happened. No.
Were the annual assessments, while you were office manager, sent to homeowners in October of each year?
Objection four.
The assessments at the end of October, yes. For the assessments.
And is it your testimony that Sterling Green never sent ballots with the assessments?
Right, exactly.
Objection four.
That never happened.
And then I'd like you to read the last two sentences in that paragraph, beginning with the word "the consequences," which is right by my thumb. You see that?
Yes, I see it. The consequences probably won't be too bad if the results are legally challenged. Legally challenged, a redo election would be ordered by the court, most likely, and I would advise the association to do over the election if a written challenge is made as a way to avoid litigation. But the association shouldn't have to defend a lawsuit and incur those costs if it can't be avoided. I recommend that the association change its practices regarding providing notice for elections.
Did the association change its practices regarding notices for elections at any point after June 21, 2017 that you are aware of?
Objection
No.
four.
Did the election, strike that. Did Sterling Green redo the election that was held in March 2017?
Objection four.
No, it wasn't.
Was Edward Holtz an attorney for the association?
What's his name again?
Edward Holtz?
Holt, yes, at one time.
The next, Exhibit 8, I'm going to mark as Exhibit 8, an April 27, 2017 email from James Young to to Sterling Green. Let's take a look at Exhibit 8. does the April 27, 2017 email from James Young to Sterling Green that's been marked as Exhibit 8, does it begin with the words, "Hi, Dorothy"?
Yes.
And then the email address it's going to is sgsterlinggreen@yahoo.com. Is that an email address you used?
I guess if it was set up for the association.
And then can you read the paragraph, second paragraph from the bottom that begins with the word "generally"?
And generally, the board is not required to let, permit the public to attend a meeting. However, there is one important exception. The property code does permit an owner to designate a representative to attend a meeting on their behalf. Ms. Garza has done this, so Mr. Olson is entitled to attend meetings to represent Ms. Garza's property. He would even be entitled to run for a position on the board. You will be able to have Mr. Olson removed from meetings if he becomes disruptive. If you are unable to have him removed, if there is no security officer, you cannot join the meeting.
After April 27, 2017, did you operate under the assumption, and by the way, where it says in this paragraph, strike that. This paragraph refers to a Miss Garza, correct?
I'm sorry?
The paragraph that you just read refers to a Miss Garza.
Yes.
Do you know who Miss Garza is?
And she was a homeowner that lived on what I think it was, I forgot, what street is that on? I don't know.
She was a member of Sterling Green, is that
Yes.
correct? Is that a yes?
Yes.
And by Mr. Olson, do you understand that to be referring to Tom Olson?
Yes.
Would it be correct to say that in this letter, the attorney, Mr. Young, is indicating that the property code permits Ms. Garza to designate a representative to attend meetings on her behalf?
Yes.
And in the next sentence where Mr. Young states, quote, "Ms. Garza has done this, so Mr. Olson is entitled to attend meetings to represent Ms. Garza's property," unquote. Did you understand that as meaning that the attorney believes that Mr. Olson is entitled to attend Sterling Green meetings?
Yes.
Objection 4.
And when Mr. Young said in the same email that, quote, "he would even be entitled to run for a position on the board," unquote, did you understand that as meaning the attorney stating that Mr. Olson could run for a position on the board?
Yes.
Objection 4.
After April 27, 2017, did Mr. Olson run for a position on the board?
Yes.
Did you operate under the assumption that he was permitted to run for a position on the board under the law, or no?
Objection 4.
Yes, according to the attorney.
Well, I'm not asking what the attorney, asking you what the attorney said. I'm asking you what you did or didn't do. My question is this: after the date of this letter, April 27, 2017, between that time and the time that you left the employment of Sterling Green, did you operate under the assumption that Mr. Olson was legally permitted to run for a position on the board, or did you not?
Objection
Yes.
4.
We did.
You did. going to mark a June 13, 2017 email of Edward Holtz to Sterling Green as Exhibit 9. Take a look at Exhibit 9, please. Have you had a chance to review Exhibit 9?
This yeah, pretty much, yes.
Does Exhibit 9 begin with the sentence, "Thanks for that information, Dorothy"?
Yes,
Would you agree that this email is addressed to you?
yes. Mhm.
Could you read the second paragraph of this document aloud, please?
Governing documents, deed restrictions are only effective once they have been recorded in the real property records with the county. To that end, the first amended and second amended bylaws are not in effect because they have never been recorded. Anytime a document is to be approved by the board, it should contain a certification by the board president or another board member attesting to the fact that the amendment or resolution, etc., was approved at a properly noticed board meeting in open session at which a quorum of the board directors was present. Some other amendments of resolution must be accomplished in other ways, but I don't believe any of those types of documents that are at issue here.
Can you read the third paragraph aloud, please?
The board president or manager have been creating new deed restrictions on the fly via website. I believe he's referring to ACC guidelines that I was able to pull up on the website, which were made effective May 25th, 2017. I see nothing to indicate that these guidelines were properly approved by the board. Also, the only way deed restrictions are made effective is if they are recorded with the county and they are effective as of the date of recording. I advise you to take down the ACC guidelines off of the website. You can certainly put up the old guidelines in their place, as those have been recorded and are currently in effect. If these guidelines were approved in a properly noticed open board meeting in open session at which a quorum of the board was present, then the guidelines should contain the board president or board member certification attesting to that fact. If this was not done properly, I'm happy to assist in drafting that language and resubmitting to you and the board to have these voted on and recorded with the real property records of the county.
Thank you.
What are the ACC guidelines he's referring to?
The deed restrictions?
The ACC guidelines were the deed restrictions?
I mean, we use those to know how to, I really can't remember. It's been a while. Can't remember everything. They would, things we put in place to do inspections.
So in Exhibit 9, Mr. Holtz states that he advises you to take down the ACC guidelines off of the website.
Mm-hmm.
Were those guidelines removed from the website on or after June 13, 2017?
Yeah, if he told us to, yes, we did.
Do you have a specific recollection of removing them or of telling anyone else to remove them?
No, if we got advice from the attorney, if we was doing something not correct, then we took it down, apparently.
While you were office manager, did you always comply with the advice of attorneys?
Yes, we did.
Objection form.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, Tom Olson requested pre-2014 records from Sterling Green attorney Ed Holtz, and I mean pre-2014 records of Sterling Green. He was advised by Mr. Holtz that those records no longer exist. Were Sterling Green's records from prior to 2014 destroyed at some point?
Objection form.
I don't recall they were.
Did you ever order or participate in the destruction or discarding of Sterling Green records?
We did. We kept them for 7 years, and after 7 years, we had them shredded.
Did you believe you were complying with the law when you did that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to mark a July 24, 2017 email of Tom Olson to Edward Holtz as Exhibit 10. It's a 3-page document. And it contains what appears to be a screenshot of deed restrictions of Sterling Green that were in effect in 2012. Please take a look at Exhibit 10. Does the list of deed restrictions and fines that are contained in Exhibit 10, do they accurately reflect the deed restrictions and fines as they existed in 2012?
Objection 4.
I can't remember if they changed from 12 to 17.
Objection non-responsive. What I'm asking is if these these violations and fines that are listed in Exhibit 10, let me rephrase it. Does Exhibit 10 in its listing of violations and fines, is it accurate with regard to those violations and fines as they existed in 2012?
Objection 4.
I'm not sure.
Did Sterling Green ever have a rule requiring that Christmas decorations be removed by January 15?
Yes.
Objection 4.
Mhm.
Did it ever have a deed restriction imposing a fine for sweeping grass into the sewer?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Did it ever have a deed restriction imposing a fine for loud noise?
Yes.
Did you ever adopt, strike that, were deed restrictions ever imposed, or did you ever devise these restrictions yourself?
Objection.
The board did.
Did you ever, objection non-responsive, did you ever devise deed restrictions yourself?
Objection 1.
Not alone, no, it was the board.
Did you ever draft deed restrictions and submit them to the board for approval?
Objection.
We let the board know what was going on and that we needed to, to update the restrictions, and we did it properly. We went through the courts and filed it. Had the attorney to look at it, and we filed it through the court.
Did the board of directors approve every deed violation and fine that you proposed to the board?
Objection 4.
I can't remember. It's been a long time. Can't remember.
Were all deed restrictions and fines imposed by Sterling Green approved by the board
Objection
during your time as office manager?
Yeah. Mhm. They were approved by attorneys and looked at by the attorneys.
Objection non-responsive. My question is, did the board approve each of the deed restrictions that were drafted by the office while you were office manager?
Objection 4.
I don't know. I know we did what we were supposed to do as far as letting the board be aware of what needed to be you know, change it or whatever, implement it or whatever.
Did you operate under the assumption that the board simply needed to be made aware of the deed
Yes.
restrictions and
Mhm.
fines you were imposing? Or did
Yes.
you operate under the assumption that the board had to approve each and every deed restriction and each and every fine for deed restriction violations?
Objection.
They were made aware.
Objection form, that was not my question. My question is, did you operate under the assumption, or did you not, that the board needed to approve every draft deed restriction violation and every deed restriction violation fine before they could be imposed on members?
Objection.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
With regard to the fines that are listed in Exhibit 10, what governing deeds or deed restrictions were recorded in the real property records of the county that authorized those fines,
Objection form.
those deed restrictions and fines?
Objection form.
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're saying.
Did you operate under the impression that deed restrictions and fines need to be approved by a meeting of the members
Objection form.
of Sterling Green while you were office manager?
Objection form.
The board talked about it, and then we let the community know.
I'm not asking about the board, I'm asking about a community meeting, about a meeting of members.
Objection.
Did you operate while you were Sterling Green office manager under the impression that proposed deed restrictions and fines needed to be approved by the membership at a meeting of the membership?
Objection.
Objection form.
No, I was not aware.
Did Susan Rice ever tell you that the membership had to approve deed restrictions and fines or inform you in any way?
She may have. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Would it be accurate to say that during your time as office manager, beginning in 2006, until you left in 2018, that Sterling Green imposed fines for deed restriction violations on members during every one of those years?
Objection form.
No,
When did it start?
Objection form.
I think it was 2007 when the attorney set up the fine policy.
And then beginning in 2007, every year thereafter until you left,
If it-
Sterling Green imposed fines for deed restriction violations, is that correct?
If they were needed, yes.
I'm going to have a July 24, 2017 email from Edward Holtz to Sterling Green, identified as Exhibit 11. Please take a look at that document. going to ask you to read aloud the paragraph that begins with the phrase, "I reviewed." It's right there.
I reviewed the newly adopted fine schedule and turned to the association's governing documents to review some of the matters Mr. Olson raised. Most importantly, I confirm that Sterling Green CIE does not have the authority to impose fines or violations of the deed restrictions. Legally, there is no statutory authority for a property owners association to fine. In order for an association to have the authority to fine owners for violation of the deed restriction, the authority must be stated in the declaration. I confirm that none of the declarations for Sterling Green contain this fine authority in their declaration. The only way for the association to be able to begin fining is to amend each of the declarations subject to the amendment requirements for each section that's contained in its specific declaration.
Am I correct then that Mr. Holtz, in his email of Monday, July 24, 2017, that's been identified as Exhibit 11, indicated to you that, in his view, Sterling Green does not have authority to impose fines for violations of deed restrictions?
Objection.
That's what it says.
Do you remember receiving this email?
No, I don't.
Would you agree that it's addressed to you since it says, "Good morning, Dorothy"?
Yes. Mhm.
When you received this, did you dispute or question his assertion that Sterling Green does not have authority to impose fines for violations of the deed restrictions?
Objection 4.
Did we do what?
Did you dispute his contention that there was no authority to impose fines for deed restriction
No,
violations?
we didn't
Objection
dispute
4.
it.
Did it cause you to be concerned that with regard to all the fines for deed restriction violations that have been collected back to 2007, there was no authority for any of those fines?
No, we assumed we had authority when he set up the policy, the fine policy.
When who set up the fine
The
policy?
attorney who set it up,
In 2007?
yes.
Objection 4.
Did Sterling Green stop imposing fines after July 24, 2017?
Objection 4.
Yes, we did. Mhm.
Did the board terminate Mr. Young as its attorney
Yes.
within a month of
Mm-hmm.
getting this
Yes.
email?
Mm-hmm.
Why did it terminate Mr. Young?
Because
Objection 4.
he or no other attorney had ever told us this, so that's why we wasn't sure, you know, why all of a sudden he was telling us these things when he never said anything before.
The board also, in addition to terminating Holtz as its attorney in 2017, it also terminated Mr. Young as its attorney in
Well, they
2017,
worked
correct?
together. They were together.
You think they worked for the same
Yes,
firm?
yeah, they worked together.
Did Sterling Green fire James Young because it did not like the legal advice it was getting from him?
Objection
No.
4.
No,
Did it fire Mr. Holtz because it did not like the legal advice it was getting from him?
no.
Objection 4.
Did you on occasion send notices to attorneys that you were terminating their relationship with Sterling Green?
Yes, after we talked with the board. Mhm.
Did you get the board's written approval did the board vote on
Yes.
the decision to
Yes,
terminate
yes.
attorneys?
Right, yes.
And are those decisions reflected in the minutes of the board?
Yes. Mhm.
If I said that Sterling Green, from approximately 2008 to 2017, imposed approximately $300,000 in illegal fines and managed to collect about $50,000, would you have any reason to dispute that?
Objection 4.
I'm not sure about the amount.
When members made payments for fines or assessments to Sterling Green,
Mhm.
those payments were tendered to your office, correct?
No, they were processed by the office assistant.
Does the office assistant work in your office?
They
Does she
work
work
on-
under your supervision?
Under my supervision. Mhm.
That's correct.
Right. Mhm.
Is there a name for the office that you worked in? Was it the business office or something?
We had the main office, and then we had the manager's office where I worked at.
When homeowners tendered money to the office for payment of assessment fees,
Mhm.
were those funds ever applied to amounts your office believed they owed for deed restriction violations?
Objection 4.
It depends on, it was assessments or fine for deed violations, one of the two, yeah.
Are you aware that it's illegal for a homeowners association to apply funds that are tendered for assessment payments to anything other than assessment accounts?
Objection 4.
No. Mm-mm.
Did Sterling Green foreclose on a unit owned by Terrence Glenn Irwin due to a delinquent account?
Objection 4.
I believe so.
I'm going to mark as Exhibit 12 an affidavit in support of damages filed in the matter of Sterling Green Community Improvement Association versus Terrence Irwin, number 2012-52279, District Court of Harris County, Texas, 151st Judicial District. Just take a look at Exhibit 12. Have you had a chance to review Exhibit 12?
Yes.
Is this does Exhibit 12 include an affidavit that you signed?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's dated May 10, 2013?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There is a this affidavit was filed in support of an action filed by Sterling Green to foreclose on Mr. Irwin's house. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Objection form.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you if you could just read the second paragraph aloud where it says, "I am the custodian."
I am the custodian of the accounting records of Sterling Green Community Improvement Association. Plaintiff herein attach here to a record showing an amount due and owing by defendant to plaintiff $6,392 after deduction attorney fees, which are also included in the attorney fees affidavit. The balance due is $5,982.46.
Thank you. Did your office provide the records that are attached to this affidavit to the attorneys for
Yes.
Sterling Green?
Mhm.
Objection form.
And on the first page, there are listed, if you can see in the middle, DB fine for failure to correct table board debris, DB fine for failure to correct trash can violations, DB fine for failure to correct junk vehicle violation, DB fine for failure to correct tire debris violation. Did I read those correctly?
Objection
Yes.
form.
Mhm.
So would it be correct to assume that among the fees that resulted in the delinquent account for which Sterling Green foreclosed on Mr. Irwin's house are deed restriction violations,
Objection form.
fines,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and his failure to pay those fines?
Objection.
Fines and assessments, yes.
Right. Were you aware when you were the office manager for Sterling Green that it is illegal for a homeowners association to foreclose on a house for failure to pay fines?
Objection form.
No, I wasn't.
Did Sterling Green ultimately succeed in foreclosing that house?
Objection.
I'm not for sure. It's been a while.
Do you know on how many other occasions while you were a manager at Sterling Green that have foreclosed on properties that had accounts that were delinquent in part due to a failure to pay illegal deed restriction violation fines?
Do I know how
Objection
many?
form.
Yes.
No, I don't know how many.
Was this the only one?
No, it
Objection
wasn't.
form.
How many times while you were the manager at Sterling Green did it foreclose on the houses of members due to failure to pay their accounts?
Objection form.
I can't remember the number.
Was it more or less than 5?
Objection form.
I think it was somewhere around that, maybe 5, not a whole lot. But
And you
Maybe
recall,
I'm
on
not sure.
average, each year, how many accounts of members are delinquent at any given time?
Objection form.
no, I don't. I mean, I can't. No, we just referred him to the attorney after a certain amount of time, but I can't. I don't know the number.
Would it be fair to assume that there are at least 50 houses in delinquency on their assessment accounts at any given time
Objection.
while you were manager at Sterling Green?
Objection
I
form.
can't recall.
Did the board of directors vote to foreclose on Terrence Irwin's house at a public meeting as required by the Texas Property Code?
Objection form.
No, I'm not sure.
Did you know that the law requires that the board vote on approving foreclosures at a public meeting?
Objection
No.
form.
I'm going to mark a email from Sterling Green to a person I believe is Mr. Holtz, dated July 25, 2017. In that email, did you write that email?
Yeah, on behalf of the board.
And did you notify Mr. Holtz in that email that you were terminating his status as attorney for Sterling Green?
Yes, that's what we were doing.
And this was immediately after he provided you with his opinion that Sterling Green did not have authority to collect fines for deed restriction violations. Is that
Objection
correct?
form.
Like I said before, he never told us this before, so we thought we needed some more counsel, different counsel.
Did you ever raise that subject before with him?
Objection form.
No, we didn't. He was our attorney, and everything that we had was posted on the site. He was supposed to have known the rules and everything of the association.
The next exhibit is a Sterling Green agenda for an executive session meeting of Monday, June 25, 2018. Please take a look at that document. Did you draft this document?
July what?
Did
What
you
date was
create
it?
this document?
What date was it?
June 25, it has a date on it of June 25, 2018.
Okay, yeah, I may have.
This document identifies as board members Gloria Cox, Tom Olson, Linda Bass, and Dorothy Malveaux. Is that correct?
Yes,
It's my understanding that at some point shortly before June 25, 2018, there was an attempt by one or more members of the board to organize an informal meeting of the board members, with the purpose of that meeting not being the discussion of Sterling Green business, but to promote harmony among board members. Do you remember anything like that?
It wasn't for business, just for harmony?
Just to try to, apparently there had been some conflict on the board, and to try to get the members to a point where they could work together. Do you remember anything like
No,
that?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Was this document generated in advance of, well, let me ask you, this document, Exhibit 14, when it has the date Monday, June 25, 2018, under the words Board of Directors Executive Session Meeting, in using that date, is that indicating that the date that the meeting would occur on, or is it indicating the date the document was created?
I think, I don't know, must have been the date of the meeting.
Okay. Would you agree with me that agendas are supposed to be generated in advance and published 72 hours in advance of the meeting?
Objection 4.
No,
It wasn't your understanding.
no,
Objection 4.
Was this document ever posted online by you?
no,
This document lists items or topics to be discussed that include the following. Tom Olson to be moved from position of president to non-officer board position. Tom Olson's name to be removed from all Sterling Green's bank accounts. Terminate the relationship of Susan Rice as general counsel for Sterling Green. Restructure position and salaries of Sterling Green employees. And discuss the agreement set up with Sarah Bass in reference to her paid position to inspect and process deed restrictions for Sterling Green. Motion to add Adele Sanchez to the board to fill an open position. Did I read that accurately? Okay. So, I guess 2 years after terminating Holtz and Young, Sterling Green was now at the point where they were terminating another attorney, or someone in Sterling Green wanted to terminate another attorney.
yeah.
Objection 4.
Do you recall Susan Rice advising you that these subjects could not be addressed because this agenda had not been posted online, and also because some topics can only be addressed at a board meeting that the members of Sterling Green are allowed to attend?
Objection
I
4.
don't remember.
Did the meeting of June 25, 2018 actually occur?
I don't remember that one.
Do you remember a board of directors meeting that was attended by Susan Rice?
Mm-mm. Do they have names on there who attended that one?
You generated documents in advance of meetings with the words agenda at them while you were the office manager for Sterling Green, correct?
Mm-hmm, right, I guess, yeah.
Did you understand there were certain requirements?
I just don't remember that.
Well, my question is, when you're creating a document that's going to list the agenda for a board meeting,
Mm-hmm.
were you aware when you were the manager for Sterling Green that there were certain statutory requirements that applied to the agenda documents?
No,
Objection 4.
Was this meeting ever announced and made public?
Objection 4.
I don't recall.
Did you spend the next year after this meeting trying to get Susan Rice fired?
Objection
No,
four.
I had no personal vendetta against Susan Rice.
Did you want her service, her status as attorney for Sterling Green terminated?
It was not my decision. If it was anybody's decision, it was a board decision.
Objection non-responsive. That was not my question. My question was, did you want her status as attorney for Sterling Green terminated?
Did me personally?
Yes.
Objection four.
I can't answer that.
Why can't you
It's not a
answer it?
personal matter. It's not personal.
I appreciate your claim that it's not a personal matter, but I'm asking you about your conduct as Sterling Green manager, and I want to know if you wanted her at any point terminated while you were board manager.
Objection four.
Well, I was in agreement with some of the other board members, yeah,
Agreement about what?
that she was not, providing services that we expected from her.
And why did you arrive at the belief she was not providing the services that were expected?
Objection four.
Just things that happened in the past.
And what were those things that happened in the past?
Objection four.
I don't know, just a lot of things happened. I don't know.
What were they?
Objection four.
We did not feel that she was giving us the legal services that we needed.
And in what respect was she not giving you legal services you needed?
Objection four.
I don't know, we just wasn't happy with her performance as far as, just giving us the information we needed on different things. Just wasn't happy with her.
Do you recall any of those specific issues where you were not happy with the work that she was doing?
Objection four.
She seemed to be more partial to the other person rather than to the HOA,
Who was the other person?
Tom Olson.
So you thought that she was, did she represent Tom Olson at that time?
She was supposed to be working with us, the board.
Was Tom Olson a member of the board at that time in
No.
June?
Objection
He wasn't a
four.
member of the board in June 2018?
Oh, 18? No, I wasn't. No, I was just talking about, because we hired her in 17, I think. And so, yeah. He became a member, I think, in March of 18. Yeah, he became a member of the board then.
Why did you think she was partial to Olson?
And we
Objection four.
just felt that way. We felt that way.
Was it because of the advice that she was giving you with
No.
regard to Olson?
No,
Objection four.
no.
Did you walk out of the June 25, 2018 meeting after Rice told you that the meeting could not address the issues that were listed in the agenda that's been identified as Exhibit 14?
Objection four.
Objection four.
I don't recall.
We could go for an hour. Actually,
Okay.
an hour.
Okay, we can take a break.
Okay.
Off the record at 2:35 p.m.